Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be talking about the balance of power in the upper house of the United States federal bicameral legislature, the United States Senate. Now this is critically important as we're currently in an era of divided party government with the Democrats controlling the United States House of Representatives and the Republicans controlling the Senate. Now this year is a little bit different from 2018 where Democrats had more of their incumbents up for re-election. This year, the Republicans have more of their incumbent senators up for re-election. 23 seats currently held by Republicans are up compared to only 12 for the Democrats. One of which is a special election in Georgia for Kelly Loeffler's seat, which she picked up from Johnny Isakson. Now, so in this era of divided party government, we've seen a tour de force in how effective it is in derailing the progress in a democratic system with regard to the novel coronavirus, where the House of Representatives passed what's called the HEROES Act, which would provide rent relief and more cash payments directly to Americans. However, Senator Mitch McConnell, the majority leader for the Republicans in the Senate, who's also up for re-election this year in a very high-profile race, he refuses to even bring the HEROES Act to a vote. So needless to say, the balance of power in the Senate is critically important, particularly in an election year, which will likely have heightened turnout. And if the Senate control is contrary to who is the president, it will likely hurt the president's ability to advance their policy agenda. So now I just want to go ahead and start off with a few seats that we know are pretty safe one way or the other. That includes Oregon, safe Dem. Where else? Virginia, likely safe Dem. Former Governor Mark Warner running in that seat. Illinois, Senator Dick Durbin. Delaware, Chris Coons. Rhode Island, New Jersey, former presidential candidate Cory Booker is running there. He's expected to win by well over 20% of the vote. Massachusetts, there is a high-profile Senate primary happening here between Representative Joe Kennedy and current Senator Ed Markey. As of right now, it does look like Kennedy is ever so slightly in the lead vis-a-vis Joe Markey. Vis-a-vis Ed Markey, I'm sorry. However, Democrats are more than likely going to win this seat. I hesitate to put any others in the safe Dem column, just because I think that Minnesota, not that I think that the Republicans are going to pick up this seat, however, it's going to be closer than what I think would constitute a safe seat. Now, there are a few seats that we can do the same for, predict them as safe for the Republicans, including Alaska's Senate seat. Idaho incumbent Senator Jim Risch is running against Democratic gubernatorial nominee from 2018, Paulette Jordan. The Democrat Jordan lost that gubernatorial election by more than 20%, and Idaho is one of the reddest states in the country. So needless to say, this state will more than likely go red. It's going to be Wyoming is going to be Republican, at least in this prediction, as well as South Dakota, Nebraska. I'm not going to put Kansas in there just because I want to talk a little bit about that, though I do think that ultimately it's going to end up going to the Republicans. Oklahoma, I'm not going to put Texas in the safe Republican column just because current Senator incumbent John Cornyn is considered relatively unpopular. While I still think that he will win re-election to this seat, I do want to elaborate on that a little more. As well, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, the first of Georgia's Senate elections. I want to talk a little bit about Kelly Loeffler's seat. I would also put West Virginia in the safe category. There are two high-profile Democratic candidates for the seat, Paula Jean Swearengin and former 2020 Democratic candidate for president Richard Ojeda, who also ran for representative in this state and lost by 13%. However, it looks safer incumbent Shelley Moore Capito. So now we're going to move to the likelies. That's going to include Minnesota. Minnesota is a state that Hillary Clinton carried by the lowest margin of any of the states, or the second lowest to New Hampshire. By one of the lowest margins of any of the states she carried back in 2016. It is most certainly a lean Democrat state, but I don't think that the partisan lean is going to be enough to constitute it being a safe seat. This also goes for New Hampshire, where incumbent Senator Jeanne Shaheen is running for re-election. There is some likelihood that she will be Joe Biden's vice presidential running mate. However, it is rather unlikely that she will choose to be his running mate. She is an incredibly popular figure in the state, and she is part of the reason why, even though New Hampshire is one of the definitions of a swing state, she is able to carry this state by a relatively large margin. As far as likely seat holds for the Republicans, I would put Iowa here. Incumbent Senator Joni Ernst running for re-election there, who won her seat in the wave election, which brought 9 new Republicans to the Senate in 2014, as well as Alabama. Alabama is a very, very, very interesting case because in December of 2017, now incumbent Democratic Senator incumbent Democratic Senator Doug Jones was running against Judge Roy Moore. Roy Moore notoriously got involved in a sexual impropriety scandal, including a number of women who accused him of sexual impropriety when they were minors. He ran for the seat again in 2020. However, he lost by a large margin to the Republicans that are currently in the runoff, former senator from the state and former Attorney General Jeff Sessions and Tommy Tuberville. More than likely, this state will go Republican. It is one of the most Republican states in the union, and particularly if Jeff Sessions is the Republican nominee here. Jeff Sessions regularly won the seat with a very large margin back when he was senator. Particularly if Jeff Sessions is elected here, Alabama is more than likely going to go Republican. I'm going to put one more. I do think that New Mexico is likely Democrat. It has been trending Democrat in recent years, once going from a pretty reliably red state up until about 2004. And then in 2008, Obama carried it, and every Democrat since has carried it. Now we're going to move on to the leans. These are states that really could go either way. I would put incumbent Democratic Senator Gary Peters from Michigan in this category. I do believe that he will be reelected. However, he is running against a relatively popular former candidate for Michigan Senate in 2018 against incumbent Democrat Debbie Stabenow, a man by the name of John James, who is a veteran, is quite popular in the state. And compared to Debbie Stabenow, Gary Peters is neither as known nor as well liked. However, more than likely, Gary Peters is going to take this state. Part of what's going to benefit Democrats in their Senate elections is that for the first time, Joe Biden is leading nationally by more than Democrats are leading in a generic congressional ballot, in that more people are likely to vote for Joe Biden than they are to vote for a generic Democrat in Congress. That's going to help people like Gary Peters in Michigan. It's going to help people who are challenging in states like Arizona, Colorado, Kansas, Texas, North Carolina, Kentucky, and Maine. That's going to help them a lot because given that in 2020 turnout will almost certainly be higher than it was in 2018 because it is a presidential election year, and Joe Biden will likely help some of these down ballot Democrats gain votes. So I'm going to put Michigan in the lean category. I'm also going to put Colorado in the lean category for the Democrats. Popular former governor John Hickenlooper is running there against incumbent Senator Cory Gardner. Cory Gardner is a relatively unpopular incumbent senator. He did vote to acquit Donald Trump on both charges in the Senate and during Donald Trump's impeachment trial. And Colorado has been moving quite steadily in favor of the Democrats. Once again, from up until 2004, Republicans reliably won Colorado in presidential and Senate elections to now it has been won by Barack Obama twice and Hillary Clinton in 2016. I'm also going to put Arizona in this category. Now I'm going to put Arizona here, and I want to show you guys some of the polls. Mark Kelly, the husband of former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords of Minnesota, is running for election to this Senate seat, and it is and Mark Kelly is widely expected to win. At one point, he had more money in his campaign bank account for Arizona Senate than did Joe Biden. In his presidential campaign bank account. Kelly, as you can see in two polls already, is winning by a pretty large margin against Martha McSally. Martha McSally also voted to acquit President Trump on both charges in the impeachment trial in the Senate. Kyrsten Sinema won the Senate seat here in 2018 against Martha McSally by a margin that was larger than was projected in polls. Now, Martha McSally is a senator because after the resignation of John Kyle from this seat, Governor Doug Ducey appointed Martha McSally to the seat. However, she is falling far behind Mark Kelly in polls here, and it does look far more than likely that she's going to that she's going to lose this election. Now, I'm also going to put Texas in the lean category for the Republicans. Incumbent Senator John Cornyn is running here, and there was some buzz around Beto O'Rourke running for this seat, as he did in 2018 against Ted Cruz, very nearly unseating Cruz. There was some talk of Beto O'Rourke running in the seat to unseat John Cornyn, as Ted Cruz is actually more popular in Texas than is John Cornyn. However, he has decided not to run in this seat, leaving no high-profile Democrats to challenge John Cornyn. So more than likely, Texas will go red. Same deal in Kansas. I'm going to put that in the lean column, almost entirely because this in a normal year would be safe Republican. It is one of the most conservative states in the union. However, former Kansas Secretary of State Chris Kobach, a widely polarizing figure, is running for Senate here in Kansas against the Democrats. Kobach is famously unpopular. He lost the gubernatorial election to now Governor Laura Kelly in 2018. If he were to win the nomination for the Republican nomination for Senate in this seat, more than likely this would shift Kansas into the lean or tilt Democrat column because he is considered widely unpopular here. However, as of right now, we still don't know who the nominee is going to be, so I'm going to keep it in the lean Republican section because I do believe that, for the most part, Kansas will more than likely go red. Now, this brings me to Kelly Loeffler's seat in the special election. I would normally put a seat like Kelly Loeffler's in a pretty conservative state like Georgia as likely or safe Republican. However, Kelly Loeffler has gotten herself caught up in an insider trading scandal regarding the novel coronavirus, where she sold many of her family's stock after hearing insider information about the severity of the coronavirus. This has engulfed a number of senators, including Dianne Feinstein of California. Um, However, it doesn't look like it's going to see Kelly Loeffler out of office. She has her own personal coffers to dip into. She is one of the richest senators in the United States Senate currently, so more than likely she is going to win this seat. This brings us to South Carolina, where Jamie Harrison is running against Lindsey Graham. Now, Lindsey Graham is not widely popular. However, South Carolina is, again, just one of the most conservative states in the union, and the Deep South has not gone to Democrats since 1976 in the presidential election, and they've lost most of their leverage in Senate and House seats here. So more than likely, Jamie Harrison is going to lose to incumbent Senator Lindsey Graham. But it will be close. It will be close, and Harrison still does have a lot of time to make up ground. Now, Kentucky, I'm going to put in the lean category. However, it is one of the most fascinating elections of this cycle. Um, uh, Congressional candidate Amy Graff is running for Senate here. She is the Democratic nominee for Senate in Kentucky. Now, she lost to Mitch McConnell she lost her congressional election back in 2018. However, a number of polls have shown her tied with Mitch McConnell, or leading him by statistically negligible margins, like 1 or 2% against Mitch McConnell. And she has racked up a number of high-profile endorsements, including from Vice President and Democratic nominee Joe Biden. So there is a lot to say for Amy McGrath. She's got a lot going for her. However, more than likely, this is a seat that will go Republican. It's been a long time since the leader of a party caucus in the Senate has actually lost their seat. Now, this brings us down to the 3 seats that really are going to decide this election. I want to start with Montana. It's Steve Daines, incumbent Republican, against popular current governor Steve Bullock. He was also a former Democratic candidate for president, raising $5.4 million before ultimately dropping out before the Iowa caucuses. If we look at the Senate polls here, starting in March, Bullock was tied with Daines. Now, in a survey with a far lower sample size, Bullock is leading by 7%. Also, I think that's important to remember that Bullock has started to outraise Steve Daines in this election, raising $3.3 million in March, compared to Steve Daines, who only raised $1.3 million. Now, Bullock got off to a late start in this election, so he is still behind in cash on hand. However, if that sort of fundraising advantage continues, it could make this seat very, very competitive. Bullock is also very popular in the state as its current governor. So now, it is for those reasons that I'm going to put that in the tilt Dem. Now, I do this with a lot of restraint. I really am not sure about this one. This is going to be a very temperamental Senate election. However, since incumbent Democratic Senator John Tester won re-election here in 2018, since Bullock does appear to have something of a lead in polling here in Montana, and since Bullock has started to build a fundraising advantage, I am going to put that in the tilt Democratic column. However, I do have a hard time saying that I'm confident in that pick. So now we're going to move over to North Carolina. It's former Senate nominee Cal Cunningham running against incumbent Senator Tom Tillis. Now, Tom Tillis is very vulnerable. While he does post very high fundraising numbers, Tillis is widely unpopular in North Carolina. Um, However, polls currently show Tillis down to Cal Cunningham by 0.2%. Um, that said, I'm ultimately going to put this in the tilt Republican column. It is still a primarily um, socially conservative state, and I think that ultimately Tillis is going to edge out Cunningham. Again, this is a lot like Montana, where I have a hard time saying that I'm confident in this pick, that I'm confident that it won't change as we get closer to the election. Now, finally, we have the Senate election in Maine. Now, incumbent Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski is very unpopular here, and she's running against a candidate with very high name recognition. That's Sarah Gideon, the Speaker of the House of the Maine State Legislature. Susan Collins famously voted to acquit Donald Trump on both charges of impeachment, saying that she felt that he had learned his lesson from being impeached by the House of Representatives, which is a broadly unpopular stance to take in Maine. And as Sarah Gideon starts to gain high profile endorsements, as she starts to have something of a fundraising edge, she has begun to lead in polls despite starting off this race very, very far behind Susan Collins. So as of right now, I'm going to err on the side of that Sarah Gideon ultimately has a better shot of winning the Maine Senate election. There still is a lot to be said about that, and I have every reason to believe that that is very likely to change as we get closer to election day. But yeah, no, this is my full prediction map. I do believe that it is going to be tied between the Democrats 50-50, and because of that, it is going to all depend on which party takes the White House, thereby which party's vice president will preside over the Senate, and thereby, if this map is correct, give the majority to either the Democrats or the Republicans. Of course, if Donald Trump wins, Mike Pence stays vice president. That gives the Senate majority to the Republicans. If Joe Biden wins, whoever his vice presidential running mate will preside over the Senate and ultimately give the Democrats the majority if this map proves true. So thank you guys so much for watching. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. Tell me what I could have done better. I'm really excited to engage in the comments and talk about politics, talk about how we feel about this predictory map. And I will see you all in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.